Open your fridge right now. There's a good chance there's a carton of milk sitting in there. And it almost certainly came from a cow. Not a goat, not a camel, not a buffalo, a cow. You've probably never once questioned that. It's just what milk is. But here's the strange part. Humans have drunk the milk of at least 8 different animals throughout history. And cow milk isn't even the most nutritious one on that list. Not close. So why did we all end up drinking the same animal's milk? Was it the healthiest option, or did we just default into it because of history? Let's start with a question most people never ask. Why do we drink milk from any animal at all? For most of human history, this would have sounded insane. Every mammal on Earth produces milk for one reason only: to feed its own babies. Nothing else. No other species raids another species' milk supply as a dietary staple. We're the only ones who do that. And here's the part that should really stop you. We're also the only species that keeps drinking milk well into adulthood. Every other mammal on the planet weans off milk the moment it can chew solid food. A wolf pup stops drinking its mother's milk within weeks. So does the lion cub. So does a baby whale. So does a chimpanzee. Milk drinking has an expiration date built directly into mammalian biology. And for most humans throughout history, it did too. Right now, roughly 2/3 of adults worldwide are lactose intolerant. That's not a disorder. That's the factory setting. The ability to digest milk into adulthood comes from a genetic mutation called lactase persistence, and it only became common in a handful of populations, mostly Northern Europeans, along with a few pastoral groups in Africa and the Middle East, after humans started herding animals for milk roughly 7,000 to 9,000 years ago. Everyone else is still running the original code, where milk stops agreeing with your body the moment childhood ends. So the fact that you can drink a glass of cow milk without your stomach staging a full revolt isn't normal. It's a genetic anomaly. Now let's talk about why cow milk specifically became the default, because it wasn't chosen for being the healthiest. A dairy cow can produce somewhere around 6 to 7 gallons of milk a day. A goat produces less than a gallon. A sheep produces even less than that. When early farmers were deciding which animal to build an entire food economy around, volume alone made the decision. Cows were also easier to herd in large numbers, tolerated a wider range of climates, and didn't demand the kind of individual attention smaller dairy animals require. Cow milk didn't win because it was nutritionally superior. It won because it scaled. And once you actually line the milks up side by side, cow milk isn't at the top of most categories. Not even close. Take goat milk. Its fat globules are smaller than cow milk's, which makes it easier for a lot of people to digest, including some people who genuinely struggle with cow milk. It's almost naturally homogenized. The fat doesn't separate the same way. Goat milk is also consumed by more people globally than any milk except cow milk, largely because goats can survive and thrive in rough, dry terrain, where cows simply can't. Then there's sheep milk, which is arguably the nutritional heavyweight of the entire group. Sheep milk contains roughly double the fat and protein of cow milk, along with significantly more calcium and vitamin B12. That's exactly why it's used for dense, rich cheeses like Roquefort and Pecorino. There's simply more nutrition packed into the same volume. Buffalo milk takes that even further. It's higher in fat than both cow and sheep milk, which is exactly why it's the milk used to make authentic mozzarella. It's thicker, creamier, and carries more calcium per serving than cow milk does. In parts of South Asia, buffalo milk isn't the backup option. It's the dominant dairy product, full stop. Then you get into the milks that sound almost fictional if cow milk is all you've ever known. Camel milk is a daily staple across parts of the Middle East, North Africa, and Central Asia. And it is genuinely strange stuff. It's lower in lactose than cow milk, higher in vitamin C, and contains insulin-like proteins that researchers have studied for their potential effects on blood sugar regulation. Some populations that rely on camel milk as a dietary staple show lower rates of certain metabolic conditions, though scientists are still untangling how much of that comes from the milk itself versus overall lifestyle. And then there's horse and donkey milk, which might be the most surprising of all. Nutritionally, they are the closest of any animal milk on Earth to human breast milk. lower in fat, higher in lactose, with a protein profile that's gentler on the human digestive system. Historically, donkey milk was even used as an infant formula substitute in parts of Europe when a mother couldn't nurse. Cleopatra was famously said to bathe in donkey milk, though that particular story sits closer to legend than lab result. So if you lined up cow, goat, sheep, buffalo, camel, and donkey milk and asked which one is objectively the healthiest, the honest answer is that there isn't a single winner. Sheep milk wins on raw nutrient density. Camel milk wins on unique bioactive compounds. Donkey milk wins on digestibility and closeness to human milk. Cow milk wins on exactly one thing: availability, because we built an entire global supply chain around it. Now, there's a version of cow milk that comes up constantly in health circles: raw milk, straight from the cow, unpasteurized, untouched. Advocates argue pasteurization destroys beneficial enzymes and bacteria, and that raw milk is closer to how humans drank dairy for thousands of years before industrial processing existed. And they're not entirely wrong. Pasteurization does reduce certain enzymes and can slightly alter some proteins. But here's the problem. Pasteurization wasn't invented to annoy health enthusiasts. It was invented because unpasteurized milk was making people seriously, sometimes fatally, sick. Raw milk can carry salmonella, E. coli, listeria, and a handful of other pathogens that pasteurization exists specifically to kill. Health authorities have directly linked raw milk to a disproportionate share of dairy-related illness outbreaks, relative to how few people actually drink it. So while raw milk fans aren't wrong about some nutrient loss during pasteurization, there's a real trade-off happening. You're weighing a modest enzyme difference against a genuine risk of hospitalization. It may be marginally better nutritionally. It is also measurably less safe. This is where evolution comes back into the picture, because the real question was never which milk is best in a vacuum. It's which milk your specific ancestors actually adapted to drink. Populations that herded cattle for thousands of years developed lactase persistence tuned to cow milk. Populations that herded camels adapted differently. The healthiest milk for you personally is arguably the one your gut has had generations to prepare for, not the one that happened to dominate global agriculture. Which brings up the modern wrinkle in all of this: plant milk. Almond, oat, soy, coconut. None of these are milk in any biological sense. An almond doesn't have nipples. No animal produced them for its young. They're water blended with plant material to mimic the texture and function of dairy. But their popularity exploded largely because so much of the world is lactose intolerant by default, and a plant-based substitute sidesteps the whole problem entirely. They're not nutritionally interchangeable with each other, though. Soy milk is the closest match to cow milk in protein content, which is why it's usually the recommended swap for people replacing dairy for nutritional reasons. Oat milk is higher in carbohydrates and fiber, but has almost no protein. Almond milk is the lowest in calories and protein of the bunch, often closer to flavored water than a genuine nutritional substitute, unless it's fortified. Coconut milk brings a heavy dose of saturated fat, behaving more like cream than milk. In a strange way, oat or soy milk might actually be more evolutionarily normal for an adult human to drink than cow milk is, simply because neither requires a genetic mutation to digest properly. Your gut was never designed to process any of them by default, but at least they don't rely on lactase persistence just to avoid discomfort. So where does that leave the original question? Cow milk isn't the healthiest animal milk on the planet. It's not even close by most nutrient comparisons. It's just the one that industrialized fastest, scaled easiest, and ended up in your fridge by historical accident rather than biological superiority. Sheep and buffalo milk outperform it in raw nutrition. Camel milk offers compounds cow milk doesn't have at all. Donkey milk digests more like the milk you were actually born drinking. And raw milk, despite the health trends surrounding it, mostly just trades a small nutrient gain for a real risk that pasteurization exists specifically to eliminate. Maybe the bigger takeaway here isn't really about milk at all. It's about how many of our most basic assumptions were built on convenience, not evidence. We assumed cow milk was the standard because it's what showed up first and scaled fastest. The same way we assume plenty of normal things are objectively correct, when really they're just what history happened to mass produce. The next time you pour a glass of milk, it's worth remembering that somewhere on the planet, someone is doing the exact same thing with milk from an animal you've never even considered drinking from. And by a lot of measures, theirs might be doing more for their body than yours is doing for yours. We just never got the memo because the cow got there first.